Hello, everyone, and welcome to another one of our summer virtual series. Tonight, we are diving into tough conversations with a member of our health and wellness team. Jojo, you want to introduce yourself before we jump into the agenda?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I go by JoJo, Joanne Mafia, Director of Case Management, Outreach, and Education. So, welcome and congratulations to your incoming child student. And let's have some candid conversation about the
Yes.
transition.
Again, my name is Tara Stevenson. I serve as the Vice President of Student Affairs here at Flagler. Couple housekeeping items we always like to go over in the beginning is we should hopefully have more of those recordings up on our YouTube channel. I did not get a chance to check before this, but I did check this morning, and I know that team was working on them in the past 12 hours. So I keep promising we are hoping that it's going to be up there. But don't forget, we've got the Q&A. If anybody has any questions, we will definitely try to get them to our guest tonight. If we can't, we'll recommend them to somebody else or try to connect you with who might be able to answer them. But let's go ahead and dive right in. And so, Jojo, you used that word, like candid conversations. And so, what does that mean when you say that?
So, candid conversation, just, what does this transition mean to you as the parent? Expectations, where is your head at with this transition? And I think about the transition, it's not just a transition for the student, it's a transition for you. Um, Whether you've had a child that's already gone to college or in college, it's still that sort of letting go, right? And then to what extent are you going to let go? Like, so I put it as moving from their daily manager to their supportive guide, and really reframing it as this is a collaboration, working with your student as a collaboration into this transition for them and yourself.
Yeah, so let's dive more into that. What are ways that family members could support their student in gaining independence?
Yeah, I don't know if can we hear people or are they
No, but they can drop questions in the Q&A.
okay, I see. So, yeah, I think one is going to be what are your expectations and how do you view their independence and personal responsibility? That would be one area. Um, so, from a presentation I've done in the past, is have you discussed your expectations with them for your expectations of their independence? It goes both ways about them sort of being reliant on you, but then how much are you still micromanaging or managing? And how can you let go from that process, right? Some of that would be establishing routines, communication, um, routines of expectations of the texting and the calling. We talking daily, weekly. Um,
I love that you brought that up. I think that's something so small to start this conversation is I'm gonna need just a quick text, good morning every day. That's it. We don't have to go into big details or conversations. Or, we have an orientation leader, Joseph, who would say that every Sunday night, that was his time to chat with his family and to do that check-in. And so what does it look like is definitely a great thing to start talking about now.
yeah, and I think depending if your student is coming from out of state or much further away in state, South Florida to St. Augustine, for example. So I think that communication plan would also help subside some homesickness and or what's the word I'm looking for? Preemptively sort of expect homesickness for them as well. And how can they have the resiliency to work through that? How can you help them adjust being away from home without the reliance being so heavy? Um, I think with that would come sort of social life, um, Are they someone who's going to, be comfortable going to people, reaching out to make friend groups and connect? Um, are they a little more introverted, for example? And ways um, to sort of mitigate homesickness if that is the case. I mean, even in-state students who, are away from home for the first time, um, how to build that resiliency and a way for them to adjust to their new environment, right?
And I think it's important that we're talking about this because this was a common theme that we saw from many of our students this past academic year is homesickness. And we heard it from students that are from 2 hours south or, a
Yeah.
2 hour flight
Yeah, yeah, we
from.
did. I think we were kind of, whoa. So I guess this idea of normalizing it, for
Mm,
whatever reason, it was this thing that wasn't expected or normalized for them. So
mhm.
maybe have some conversations about what that might feel like to be away from home in a new environment, because everything's going to change. Where they sleep, where they do their work, where they eat, just where they're living geographically, the culture, the city, the environment. Is going to be very different than what they're used to.
Yeah. Now you mentioned involvement. And so what does maybe over involvement look like if a student is talking to their family member about that, and how do they manage, uh, kind of, hey, what does that schedule really look like? Is this involvement for
I think
social?
for parents, right? I mean, that's the tough thing, right? How to not become overly involved, right? If your student keeps coming to you, can you give them solutions that they can maybe solve on their own, right? Saints Connect. Hey, remind them. Don't you have Saints Connect? Like log in, see what's happening on campus. You can remind them that they can go to their RA. Their RA is a support, um, to also help them, be informed about what's happening on campus and around them. Um, so you can remind them about the resources that are available to them instead of you being the one, right? So give them some ownership, even if they're coming to you, like, I don't know, I don't like it here, or I feel lonely, or I miss you guys. And like, that's okay. It's okay to miss us. Have you made any friends? Have you connected with anyone? What are your classes like? Who's in your classes? Like, like putting a little bit of the onus on them to do some of that difficult work of like coming out of
Mm.
their shell or out of their comfort zone.
So thinking about that same word involvement, but switching it, can you talk a little bit about the impacts of maybe over involvement from the family side?
Yeah, over involvement actually causes undue stress. If it's constant texting, constant calling, interrupting them in their flow, not letting them really start to have their own experience without, is that where you were going with this, Tara?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Without that interjection from you all the time, bringing them out of their present moment, their reality, drawing them back to you, right? So I think this is why having a communication agreement of what would feel satisfactory from both sides. Um, we have had cases where parents text all day, but interrupting them while they're in class with a text. But it causes stress. It doesn't allow them to be in the moment with their friends or at a club meeting or even in the dorm, in their room with their roommate or on the hall. So, how can you kind of make sure that your involvement um, isn't, taking away from them living in the moment in a new environment, and it does cause stress and anxiety. And
Yeah.
we've had students who've expressed it's anxiety provoking. It causes
Mm.
anxiousness.
So, what are some recommendations on things to definitely discuss between a family member and a student? We've talked about those communication expectations, but what are maybe some other?
So I think be cognizant, know what their class schedule is. So then when they're in class, they're in class. I mean, we're going to assume they're going to class, right? So, make sure there isn't any interruption or what can wait, right? Classes are 50 minutes or 75 minutes, right? So we even ask students, put your phone away. Like all professors have different policies. It's 50 minutes, right? You can check your phone after, or 75 minutes. Um, if they're working, if they have work study, if they have a work schedule, if they're working off campus, if you know their schedule, but let them live their life or start to live their life independently. Um, ways that you can check in and say, okay, you know, 8 p.m. If you know they're always going to be around at 8 p.m., maybe 8 p.m. is when you want that text from them to say, I'm okay, I'm with friends doing XYZ, or you can reach out. Um, I think if you don't get a response in 24 hours, that might be okay. If we go to 48 hours, but again, um, allowing them to start to establish, the sense that like their life is their life without always having to answer that. And also alleviate some of your own anxiety or stress around that as well. I guess the letting go part is probably the hardest part,
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
And I'm that's easier said than done, right? So not taking that for granted when I say that,
Yeah.
like, oh, just stop bothering. I get it.
It's it's a
I get
process
it.
for
It's
everybody.
a process, right?
Yes.
So yeah, I would say within that is if you had a schedule, if you
Mm.
say, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then, which also leads me to location tracking. Any kind of location tracking, GPS, for your own sake, like to what extent will you have a tracker where you know where they are at all times? They're in the city of St. Augustine. There's plenty of to do off campus, right? Because our campus is embedded in the city. Going to the beach, you know. So, to what extent are you going to engage in a location tracker and continue that? Um,
Mm.
and kind of maybe let a little bit of that go. Um, Maybe you just do it on the weekends. I mean, again, trust, um, without feeling anxious about their safety. So, a balance with that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
So, what are some warning signs then that family members should be aware of?
Yeah. And that's going to be per individual person, right?
Hmm.
So, knowing your child, young adult, introvert, extrovert, um, if they're not responding, um, and you're having a hard time getting a hold of them, right? That's something that you should reach out, maybe reach out to the care team, um, or, Tara, sometimes I don't know if they should reach out to housing, right? Because we do have protocols to have their RA check their room, check on them. We have wellness checks. We have protocols in place. Um, So if they're not responding or they start to become evasive, if they don't want to, if you're like, how's classes going, and they're like, oh, they're okay. If you see changes, if you're video chatting with them, like if you can do like, if you're noticing changes in their responses, changes in their behavior, those are often warning signs. Um, Depending on how much visual you get on them, but there's always visual signs and symptoms of their appearance, so they keeping themselves up. Um, are they someone who would pay attention to their hair, or if they did makeup or not makeup, but how they were dressed? Um, are they already prone to isolation and isolating? So that
Mm.
is something that you would want to look out for.
Yeah, what's the norm versus what
What's
is
the
not the
norm
norm
versus,
anymore? And
right?
I know they're figuring out that new norm for the
And
school.
sometimes it's a matter of a student just being so involved in the changes and their new friends that they're just not responding to your texts or your phone calls. Um, but we can always do a wellness check, and we can get a
Yeah.
temperature check from an RA, and then of course it goes further up the chain from there.
What are popular times in the semester that maybe a family member could expect their student to feel a bit more anxious?
I would say the beginning, the first 2 weeks, right after add drop, getting used to their schedule, getting used to the transition. I would say definitely weeks 6, 7, and 8 leads us to Thanksgiving break, but I think 6 and 7 we kind of what we call mid-semester slump could maybe come in.
Hmm.
Um, and then they come home for Thanksgiving. You know, Flagler College has the October break, the 2 days.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I would say the first 2 weeks for the transition, or 3 weeks where we have welcome week, then first week ed
Hmm.
drop, and then
Hmm.
into that. So one to
Yeah.
three weeks.
And
So
like you mentioned, the 6 to 7 weeks, that's why we intentionally schedule family weekend during that time, is because we really want students to get to know their new home and then invite their
yeah,
family to their new home to see what things are
yeah.
like.
I think academically, it's a good time to check in within that sixth, seventh week or 6 week because then
Hmm.
there's plenty of time to turn things around.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. And then, of course, I'm sure during midterms and finals at the end of the semester, maybe a bit more
yeah,
anxiety
yeah.
there. Well, wonderful. Do you mind just going over some of the different services that are within our health and wellness area?
Sure. So within health and wellness, under that umbrella, we have the health services, which is, you know, medical in the Ponce Breeze way. Um, that's going to lead me to something as well to talk about. So we have our health services, we have our counseling services, we have licensed therapists, and we have interns, certified interns working towards a licensure. So we have 3 full-time licensed therapists and usually average 2 to 3 interns.
Hmm.
Then what in my realm with case management, outreach, and education, um, say a professor noticed that your student started missing a couple of classes, they might submit a care referral or an academic alert, and that will come to me. I do the initial outreach, have the student come in. We get to root causes, figure out what resources they need. How benign is this? Is this something a little more escalated? Figure out what they need. And then um, Tara knows like we meet weekly for the care team meetings and go over every single case every week,
Hmm.
that wraparound care. We have our wellness ambassadors that are peers that create health and wellness events around the 10 dimensions of wellness for their peers around campus. Um, and we have the Well, which is the living learning community, 20 resident living learning community where they have wellness goals. That is full coming in. So,
That's
yes,
awesome.
so anything sort of health and wellness oriented events to full on um, licensed counseling in our health services.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there was one thing that you wanted to also
Yes,
mention.
thank you. So going forward, and this is something that we discuss in the orientations panels, but if your student takes any type of medication, you know, managing their medications, right? Even if that's something that they need to put in their calendar, like every morning, if it's a morning, something they take in the morning, sometimes it's a midday, or if it's an evening,
Mhm.
something, whatever they take. Um, and to know that with our health services, they have a relationship with a local pharmacy that can have
Mhm.
medications delivered. But, you know, a conversation if they take medication about managing their meds, whatever the meds are for. Um, yeah, that's an important thing.
Absolutely. Well, and just knowing that if they're getting close to the end of their prescription, how do I refill if that's something that's been automated at home? Just all those
You know, have
different
them set
things.
reminders, you know, if it's something they know they
Yeah.
have to take at a certain time or how they have to take with food. Because now, you know, if they're going to gain their independence, it's not you sending a reminder every morning. Hey, did you take your meds? Now, if it's something where maybe they've experienced a mental health challenge before, um, maybe in the beginning, helping them sort of as reminders and then slowly allowing them to have some agency over managing their meds, right? So,
Yeah.
whatever that fine line balance is.
Yeah. So a couple important dates as we're getting to the end of our discussion for tonight. We have Move-In Day on August 21st. The Health and Wellness team will have an open house on August 27th as a part of Welcome Week. You want to share what that open house looks like
Yes.
for
So our
everybody?
open house. So through the semester, every other week on Thursdays, we have a relationship with the Tri-State Canine Response Team. These are sort of emotional support dogs. So they're often brought to scenes to help calm people down, but we have a relationship with them. So we do pups and popsicles, where we give away free popsicles, but the therapy dogs are there, usually up to about 6 dogs and their handler.
Hmm.
And the students come and just pet them and sit with them. It's one of like the constant
Oh my
favoritely
goodness.
attended,
Yes.
you know, every other Thursday at 11 a.m. Sort of different locations on campus, but that's what our open house entails.
Yeah, and so it's a great way to see what different programming you're going to have throughout the semester with the wellness ambassadors and the different services. It kind of makes it all right for students to see what these places are like, so that if it is something that they want to utilize in the future, they know where to go. And then September 21st through the 25th is your
As our
Wellness Week.
Wellness Week. So
Yeah.
again, like the dimensions of wellness, but Wellness Week is an event every day. From bringing out our one of our staff members and adjunct faculty, Brad Rowe, has a vintage typewriter collection, and that is very popular.
One of my favorites.
So in the fall, we definitely program him twice, once during Wellness Week, and then on World Kindness Day in November.
Mhm.
From things from having we have outside vendors all around health and wellness, from yoga, Pilates, or sound bath, mindfulness. Will come and table with our campus partners. Um, from like painting canvases, we have 2 massage therapists that do chair massages for the students free. They can sign up for those. So a mishmash. And I know we're having Ninja Nation again, which is, you know, 2 obstacle courses that they set up on Sevilla Street.
Yes.
And all of this, of course, is free to the students. I also forged a relationship with the manager of the Smoothie King, and he's going to also donate another, 100 12-ounce smoothies that the students can just have on one of the days. So, yeah.
Love it. Love it. Well, Kelly has been joining us tonight, so thank you so much for your kind words. As a reminder, we should have a playlist on the Flagler College YouTube channel where we'll be able to see all of these recordings. I know our first one is up there, but we are working to get all the other ones that we've had. But thank you for your kind words. And then you mentioned it a little bit earlier, Jojo, but if you could give everybody a reminder on where can students find out about all these different events and themed weeks and stuff like that?
Saints Connect. So in their My Flagler account, they click on, there'll be a tab for Saints Connect. And all of our divisions, all of our departments, all events, anything student are in there. Um,
Yeah.
so whether it's health and wellness, campus recreation, student government, different clubs, um, I really encourage students when they come to say, find their friend group, find their tribe. And, I emphasize that you don't have to have 10, 20, 30 friends, right? You can have two really good friends that you click
Yes.
with. That's all it takes to prevent the isolation, to have a sense of belonging, um, to have someone know that you can talk to that's not
Mhm.
family. So
Yeah. I mean, it could
encourage
be.
them. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you and I were in a chat earlier today where we were talking about the open mic night that the English department puts on that's really successful at a local coffee shop. That might be a type of event that you go with one person and just kind of hang out in the corner, but you're still a part of a community. And then we've got the other events like our Flagler Fest, which is bringing everybody to a concert, and people love to go out and, meet other people then. But as you mentioned, Saints Connect is a great resource. We do pull a weekly newsletter for all the students with all the different activities, and that does link the students back to Saints Connect so they can pre-register for these events, and then it'll send them reminders and things like that so that they remember when those are. And then all the channels, you guys included, excuse me, all the departments, health and wellness included, usually have social media channels. A lot of them are very active on
We're on
Instagram, and so they
Instagram.
do a
Yeah.
lot of marketing on that. So that could be a great plug for family members. Oh my gosh, I saw on this Instagram that they had puppies on this past Thursday.
Yeah, yeah. Join all the Instagrams. Um, just like one of the things too, can I just quickly bring up two topics for me?
Yeah.
There was your academic expectations. Um, I only bring that up is because sometimes college math is different than math in high school. So even
Oh,
a
yeah.
student that says, "Oh, math, no problem," then they get to college. So, not only do they have to readjust their expectations on their academic performance, but so do you. We ask parents, right? It's also they're adjusting to so many things. It might be okay they don't have this stellar first semester, right? So there needs to be some grace into all the transition that happens that can influence their academics, right? Um, so again, their own expectations, because they're going to have five professors that have five different teaching styles.
Mm.
It's going to become a little bit of a different, right? So that academic transition as well. Um, and then finances and money management,
Mm.
right? So who's financially responsible and who's responsible at all levels? What financial responsibilities do they have? What kind of money do they need to manage? Um, so that's something else to consider is kind of money management and finances.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm glad you brought those up. If anybody has additional questions for you or your team, what's the best way that they can get in contact with you?
That would be my email. So it is JMAFFIA, J Mafia, at flagler.edu. That's the best way, especially for
Uh,
parents. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And then there's a health and wellness at flagler.edu, or is it Flagler? No, what's the website?
Oh, okay. That I'm gonna have to look up.
That's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
As
My
long as
apologies.
families, no,
I'm
no, no,
just
no,
used to.
families can Google Flagler College Health and Wellness and
I
it'll bring
never
them to
receive
that one.
anything from that email address. So, so I would say mine directly is going to be the
Gotcha. All
best
right.
way to
So
get an immediate
jmafia at
response. Yes.
flagler.edu. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Jojo. I really appreciate this
Thank
candid
you.
conversation on Candid Conversations. Next week, we are going to be reviewing all that move-in day encompasses. And so our residence life team is going to join us back on here and just what our families and students can expect from that day. My absolute favorite day of the year is move-in day. I know there's a lot of emotions, a lot going on, but it is such a magical time that, kicks off a whole new academic year. So we'll go through the ins and outs with that. But again, keep checking our family portal, keep checking the Flagler College YouTube channel, and we will keep working with our campus partners to get these recordings up there. But thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you at the next one.